Hello everybody, this is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. I'm down in southern Louisiana right now. First time I ever came down here was with Dalton Leone, my road partner from San Francisco, the Asian master. I talk about him several times in my new book, and he beat a guy down here around Morgan City, I think, out of over 30,000, and this was in the early 80s, so $30,000 back then was probably about like 100,000 now, I would think. So it was a big score. So we went down here and he brought me various places, and we won some pretty good money, but all the time I was learning, and Dalton taught me some important things, the things that really shaped my life. For one, he always told me money must be a result, not an incentive. And I've taken that to heart. I never got into anything that I didn't have the incentive to do really well, and the money was always a positive side effect. I found he was right at times when I just tried to make money. It didn't work very well. I mean, sometimes I made the money and then it would just be taken from me somehow. So that was a life-changing little bit of knowledge that he gave me. And also, preparation is all, readiness is everything. And that's where I really gained a lot of knowledge from him, because he taught me how to prepare and to be ready, and to be able to decipher things in a pool room. The one thing, you've probably heard this before, you want to believe none of what you hear and half of what you see when it comes to the pool rooms, the big action pool rooms. And I can say that about the world right now. I would basically believe about none of what I hear and half of what I see. That's good advice. Another thing is, when it came up in my action days, one of the best action pool rooms that I've ever been into was a place called Lambert's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is only about an hour from where I'm at now. Lambert owned the place, and there was a guy named FlyBoy, his real name's Jimmy Spears, was there, and they were in the poker machine business and gambling business, who knows what all, but one thing for sure, they had a lot of cash money. So the first time I heard about this spot, a friend of mine, Jimmy Wetch, who I've played many times, we've probably played 70 hours, maybe 80 hours against each other. We played like 4 different times. Jimmy's I really respect his heart. He was one of those players that was extremely hard to beat. I mean, it took somebody, I'm one of the few ones that did beat him, actually, when you're talking about playing long marathon matches. We played in Olathe, Kansas, and ended up playing for 28 straight hours. We got done, we went and got some sleep. Within 12 hours after we quit, we played again and played 18 straight hours. And I remember when I was getting warmed up for the second session, it's like my bones ached. I woke up, it's like everything in my body hurt. But back then, I had a way of, I would just set my mind to almost enjoy the pain. So, I love playing long sessions, because when things really started hurting, it acted as a way of shutting off my mind and getting me deeper into a zone. So I went to, so Jimmy won about 60,000 there. I think he beat FlyBoy, and then he beat a player named James Walden from Oklahoma City, who was a really strong unknown player. And so Strong Arm John, I think, is the one that first told me about the spot. He was down there and won quite a bit of money. But when I went down there, it was like the who's who of hustlers. Jack Cooney was there, and Billy Incardona, and Shannon Dalton, Jose Parica. See, that's how I really started there. Jose Parica had a pretty strong stake horse, and they knew I didn't really play one pocket that much, and I ended up matching up a game where Jose gave me 9-6, and we had to play 3 and stop. So you could only run 3 balls, and then you had to stop. So Shannon Dalton was actually in with me, and he is a one-pocket expert, so he was coaching me a little bit. And, with that particular game, it was virtually impossible for Jose to win because of my firepower. I don't move playing one pocket that great, or at least I didn't at that particular time, but my shot making made up for it, because I'd been playing guys like Cliff Joyner, and they just basically had to change their game. Last time I played Cliff, he quit me and said that he would never play me again, because I just played the game, you could say wrong, but I had the firepower. I guess it was like, Joshua Filler. It was the same type deal. Like, he isn't a great mover in one pocket, but he pockets balls so well that you can't play him like you do regular people. You can't leave him shots like to tempt him, because he'll just go ahead and shoot him and make them and run the 8 and out. And that's basically what I was doing. So Jose, we went back and forth a little bit, but Shannon's best advice with me was just try to get the first 2 balls first. Really work hard to get that first ball or second ball, because then I could get out in 2 innings. Even though you can run 3, you won't be able to run 3 every time. So for him to get to 9 is probably going to take him at least 4, maybe 5 innings. For me to get to 6, it's probably going to take 3 innings no matter what. Maybe 2. But the strategy was just to get to 1 or 2 first. And then it made a big difference, because then it was much easier to win the game with 2 innings, if that makes any sense. So I ended up winning that match, and I think I won about 10,000, it seems like, 9 or 10,000. And then Shannon ended up getting in a game with FlyBoy and gave him the 7 in the break. Now, FlyBoy at one time was a really good player, but he quit playing pool for a number of years and gained some weight, and he wasn't in that good a shape. His eyes were probably not that good, even though he was younger than I am now, which is kind of hard to believe looking back. But Shannon gave him the 7 in the break, and they bet really high, because Shannon ended up winning about 150,000. I won 15,000 just betting on the side. You could go to Lambert's back then and win a ton of money betting on the side if you knew which side to take. Now, that's where it got tricky. And that's where later on, after I played Jose, I went back to Dallas and I played one pocket with a guy named Tommy Ray, who's a really, really smart gambler, one of the best gamblers probably in the country, and plays one pocket pretty good. So I was giving him 10-7, and we played quite a bit there for that period. And Tony Fargo had just shown me his banking system. So I had all this knowledge that was coming in, and I applied it all to one pocket. And I ended up going back and forth with Tommy Ray at first, and then I got to where I probably beat him 4 or 5 times in a row. The last time we played, I remember we played for about an hour, and I beat him every game. He didn't make a ball, and I didn't give him a shot at his pocket. And he told me that was it. He wasn't going to play anymore. So we really never did match up again. But when I went to Baton Rouge the next time, that's when I had things set up, because they had watched me play one pocket, and they could tell that I didn't really play it that well. I just shot real straight. So I could make a ball from anywhere, but as far as moving the balls around and playing defense, I just, at that time, wasn't that knowledgeable. But after playing Tommy Ray about 15 times probably, I learned the game pretty well, and I could always run balls well. So when I went back to Baton Rouge, this guy came up to me that was betting on Jose last time, and he told me that Amerillo Slim, the card player, was there, and he had a bunch of money, and he was going off, and he was playing Efren 15-5, 14-5, which Efren would have to go to 15. When Efren was breaking, Slim went to 5, and then when Slim was breaking, Efren would go to 14, and Slim would go to 5. Very tough game. So this guy told me that Slim would play me the same game. Well, that was out of line, and so when he said that, immediately I thought he was in with Slim, which proved to be correct. Because, and this is going back to some of the things Dalton taught me, and Omaha John and Weldon Rogers, when you're in a pool room, and I would say these days, this goes for just about anywhere, when somebody says to you that you can beat somebody, or they come up to you and they start talking bad about somebody in particular, another pool player, both of these are potential traps. And I'm just wired that when somebody tells me something or I learn some news, I always look at the other side of it. And I look at it, if it was a lie, why would they be doing it? And I can do this calculation in split seconds. So, and that's funny. I remember being in Dallas, and there's a pool room. It's closed down now, so I guess I can tell this. But, you always want as much information as you can get in a pool room. And the best way to get that information is to create an enemy who is not really your enemy. There's a saying that says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, that's really misleading, because what I did there was a guy that I was friends with, but nobody knew we were friends. And so I talked to him, and we set up a deal where we had a big disagreement. It was public. It got emotional. We're like yelling at each other and really laid it down. And Weldon Rogers is the one that taught me how to do this. Weldon and I got in altercations in pool rooms where it looked like it might come to blows. Like, he played my uncle, but he was like a mean old uncle, and he was hard on me, and we'd yell at each other. And I mean, people absolutely thought it was real. I even thought it was real at times. After it was over, I remember the first time I did that with Weldon, after it was over, I was kind of shaken up, and I was like, when we got alone, I was like, are we all right? Are you okay? He goes, yeah. What do you mean? I said, well, man, I know you were acting. I said, but man, I felt like I thought you were really mad at me. And Weldon laughed. He said, listen, kid, he says, that's how you do it. He says, if you can't create emotion in people, you can't really manipulate them like you'll need to make a living playing this game, especially what we were doing, because that's the key. You want to create emotion, and that's why they do these things on TV every week or two, where it's some kind of big stage deal and there's a lot of emotion attached. I mean, I could go down a whole list, and it's my opinion that all of them are staged. And if you really look with that in mind, you can see it. If you don't look at it with that in mind, you'll never see it. And that goes back to what I've told you about marked cards. I can put a mark on a card, and if you don't know where it's at, there's no way you can find it. But once you know where it's at, that's all you'll be able to see. And I did this by experience. They'll hold up a card. Once you know where that mark is, when they hold that card up, your eye will go right to that mark immediately. And you'll see that mark almost as distinctly as you see the card. It's a most amazing thing. That taught me more about the subconscious than anything, and that's what got me involved in getting a master's degree in neurolinguistic programming and studying Ericksonian hypnosis and all that stuff wasn't for offense, it was for defense, because I knew I would need to know those things to protect myself. And it was the best move I've ever made, especially in these days, because like I said, if you don't look at every situation and be able to look at the opposite of it and work backwards, then it's called being gullible. In my world, it's called being a sucker. So when somebody comes up to you in a pool room and says, there's somebody that you should play and gamble with, if you don't know this guy very well, and even if you do, a lot of times, especially if you have a lot of money, you're a target. But whatever they say, you have to, at least in your mind, check out the alternative. And if they are lying, why are they lying? And just try to figure that stuff out as quick as you can. And it'll save you a lot of money, but it'll also give you a better overall knowledge base of what's going on. I could give you a lot of examples, but some of the big examples I give people, will just give them cognitive dissonance if they don't already understand how to look at something if it's staged. And then the pool hustling world, a lot of the stuff is staged. And I can see it pretty quick. If you go to these real big tournaments and they're woofing at each other and talking loud, and that's the most likely game that there might be some devious things going on. Because, when you're creating that emotion, you've got to be loud, and you've got to pull people in, and you've got to be the center of attention, and I didn't do that near as well as Omaha John, especially Big Arm John, Strong Arm John. He's a master at it, He gets the center of attention and starts talking about gambling. I want to gamble and gamble. He'll use gamble seems like every third or fourth word. But what he's doing is programming people to want to gamble. Because if you don't talk about gambling, people might not think about it. It's just like anything else. You have to put it out there. You have to make that suggestion so that people, at least subconsciously, start processing it. So back to Baton Rouge, I ended up playing Amerillo Slim, giving him 14-5, 15-5. And I had some people in with me that I had a feeling that they were actually rooting against me. I didn't know that for sure, didn't care, because I was betting my money, and whatever they bet really didn't concern me. But I felt like I was in a trap. I felt like I was being what you call triple steered, where they tell you to play a game, but they're really actually in with the other guy, and then they go in with you, but they're actually in with them. So it gets a little bit convoluted there, and it sounds confusing, but it's not when you grew up doing those kind of things from a young age like I did. We were doing stuff like that when I was 15, 16 years old. So, and by the way, I haven't done that kind of stuff since I was about 27. So that's, what is that, 33 years? So it's been a while. But I applied a lot of the stuff that I learned in business and was able to I generated over $50 million in the bar, nightclub, and pool room business. And that, the main reason was because of that, and also that my mother taught me business by getting me in the snow cone selling venture when I was like 9 years old. And I've told that story before, we'll get in on that, but what a way to teach a kid business. I would highly recommend when you've got kids that you get them a lemonade stand, snow cone stand. We were crushing the ice, and I was buying the syrup, and then I ended up buying the concentrate and mixing it myself because it saved a lot of money on the syrup. And I just learned a lot of the basics of business, and then how to sell the snow cones, and just, it was just much better than learning it all out of a book. and I'm glad my mother helped me do that when I was so young. By the time I was 16, I had $21,000 saved up in the bank so I could buy a car. And I ended up buying a brand new car when I was 18. It was a Ford Tempo diesel that got 60 miles a gallon. Ended up going down to about 57 miles a gallon. But I could fill the tank up for $12 back then and drive 600 miles or more. So anyway, so I ended up going against Amerillo Slim. See, what they didn't realize and calculate into this equation, and the reason they were really betting against me, is they didn't know that I went back and played all that one pocket with Tommy Ray. They didn't know that I'd learned this bank system. I paid Roger Griffiths and I paid $700 to Tony Fargo to learn this bank system, and without that I couldn't have beat him, because I started banking so well that I either made the bank or hung the ball in the pocket just about every time. So every time, virtually, that Slim came to the table, he's knocking balls out of my pocket, and I basically just wore him out. He was knocking balls out of my pocket way more than he was knocking balls towards his. So when you do that for 11 or 12 straight hours, it takes a toll on somebody, and it did with him. So I ended up winning $32,000. I won half of it, $16,000, and then my partner, so to speak, that got the money, they didn't look too happy. So I presume I was right, and I mean, I would bet on it, but I don't know 100% for sure, but close enough. Anyway, so that's the outline of kind of how I would think differently than you may, or somebody that hasn't been around pool rooms or been around the gambling scenarios. Like I said, any type of situation I look at the opposite, like whatever the equal opposite of that situation is, and then I go backwards. And it's a lot like, playing position in pool. Johnny Archer told me one time, when he's under pressure especially, he always looks at the shot and where's like the worst place he could get. And he includes on the rail. So he'll look at the shot and not just look at where he wants the cue ball to go, but he'll look at where's the worst place it could go, and then goes backwards from there and decides how to play shape. So he taught me that, and that was useful information. I still don't do it all the time. I play pretty fast and aggressive, and I tend to not look at the negative possibilities when I'm playing pool. But I definitely do in life. And if I feel like I'm in a trap, I will always push the emotional button, and I will always create a diversion or some type of situation that completely throws the person off that's trying to put me in the trap. And I'll go over more details. In my book, there's several examples of that. You can get that at Amazon.com. It's on audiobook on most of the platforms, I believe, by now. Memoirs of a Legendary Pool Hustler. Stories from the road. So if you like these stories, I'd appreciate it if you'd check out my book and like this, share it with friends, and join my channel, because I've got a lot of other instructional stuff that I've made that's going to be coming out here in the next couple weeks. So I put out 3 videos last week, and all of them have some golden nuggets in there. So check them out when you get a chance. And if you want to learn my high-level fundamentals, techniques, and systems, join me at masteringpocketbilliards.com or cjwiley.com. You can find my stroke trainer and my stance trainer as well. They're working out superb. I've got a lot of positive results already. So anyway, till next time, this is CJ. Talk with you soon.